my beautiful people out there. So I'm gonna be dyeing my hair, hopefully spooky colors. I'm not really sure. But I have this like orange color right here, and I got this. This is what it is. It looks kind of funky in the bowl, but it looks nice on. That's all that matters. And then I have this purple right here, which is like a mix of this, because I barely had any of it left, and then I have this purple haze, which I put some of this in it, so I just mix these two together. And then I have these two different greens that I got. I have a electric lime one from Adore, and then I have a Manic Panic one. So this one's electric lime and this one's electric lizard. I wonder if they're like out here having conversations like, guys, we're all gonna call it Electra or electric. Electra sounds cool to me actually, but whatever. And yeah, so I'm gonna dye my hair that colors, and then gonna talk about a murder mystery, crime, or true crime, whatever you want to call it. So today, anyways, I'm gonna be talking about this case that happened on Halloween, which, I mean, I love Halloween more than like anyone else in this world basically, but you know, sadly Halloween is like the perfect time for people to go about killing people. So that's what brings us to what I'm going to be talking about today. So there's this lady, not just any lady, a lady whose name is Cindy Song. I can't remember, I don't know, well, not can't remember, but I don't know how to pronounce her name because it's Asian, or yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it basically, and I don't want to mess it up and butcher it and have people be mad at me because I'm an idiot who doesn't know Korean. She was born and raised in South Korea, and then her family, well, she moved when she was 15 years old to live with her aunt and uncle in Springfield, Virginia. And then after graduating high school, she decided to go to Pennsylvania State University. And there, in 2001, Cindy was 21 years old, and she attended a costume party at a Players nightclub, because nightclubs, you know, woot woot. I don't know anything about nightclubs, never been to one, but I've heard they're fun, so hopefully I'm right on that one. And Cindy was dressed up as a bunny. She had on bunny ears, a pink t-shirt with a bunny logo on it, a white tennis skirt with a tail attached, sheer stockings, brown suede knee-high boots, and a red hooded parka. So, I mean, when I read this, I immediately thought of Reese Witherspoon in Legally Blonde when she was in that bunny's outfit, but like the cute version, so with like skirts and stuff, like less skin basically. Anyway, so the three partied into the early morning, early morning hours of November 1st. So the day after Halloween. So they were really out there just doing their thing, having a fun time. And so once the club closed at 2 a.m., they're like, okay, we're done with this, let's go. And so they drove through downtown and stopped at a friend's apartment, and they played video games for the next couple hours. And then at 4 a.m., Cindy was dropped off by one of her friends, by her friend Stacy, but Stacy didn't wait and like see if, you know, she actually like walked into the apartment. She just kind of was like, cool, you're here, and then like drove off. And then that was sadly the last time that Cindy was actually seen. And Cindy's roommate, when she returned home from a family vacation, the apartment was locked and nothing looked out of the ordinary, so the only thing that was missing was Cindy. So she just kind of was like, okay, you know, nothing seems weird. So then they eventually reported her missing in November 4th, 2001. So like 3 days after she disappeared. And then, but no one had any contact with her, which was weird because she was one of those people who was often like, hey, you know, like if you don't hear from me, I'm probably like here, or like whatever. She just always liked to keep people in contact of like where she was going, just so that, you know, if something like that happened, then she wouldn't have to be concerned that like her friends or loved ones would be like worried about her, kind of thing. Anyway, So, anyway, so 2 days after they actually put in a missing report, the investigators started searching her apartment, and they had actually found that she had left some eyelashes, like on her sink. So they were like, okay, like she's fine then, or like not fine, but she, you know, it doesn't seem like she at least got inside okay. So they knew that much. It also seemed that she had left voluntarily because of that. The only thing that seemed to be missing was her bags, which had like all her stuff in it. So think like her phone and her like her wallet, things like that, and her driver's license or keys. Oh, and then they found in her apartment, they found 2 Britney Spears concert tickets that were in her apartment. So I mean, I guess that's important. And down the road from her apartment was a 24-hour convenience store that she would often walk to. She was known to do so at odd hours. So they were thinking that like maybe, you know, since that was a common thing that she did, maybe she just went there, and maybe like something happened to her while she was out and about. And when investigators got her phone records, they saw that there was no calls made or received after she was dropped off at her house. None of her emails seemed alarming either. No activity on any of her credit cards. Like, you know, nothing that seemed kind of like, okay, like she's just run away or, you know, gone to have some fun. Like anything like that. It was just kind of like, okay, like clearly she's like nothing suspicious is happening here, or it didn't seem so anyway. Oh yeah, and then they read her diary, which, I mean, everyone's worst nightmare, but they read her diary, and so when they read her diary, investigators began to believe that maybe it was a case of drug involvement, because she had written about experimenting with ecstasy and marijuana, but her friends, you know, her friends had her back, and they were there to tell, you know, like, hey, no, that's just something that, like, is a part of the college experience. Like, other than that, that's not something that was really, like, widely a part of her, that was more of, like, a one-time thing, or, like, a fun kind of experimental thing, not necessarily something that she did on the daily. And so but yeah, so then they said that, and then her friends were like, you know, that's not, like, that's just a part of the college experience. It's not anything that should be suspicious. And then a month prior to her disappearance, she actually went through a pretty rough breakup with her boyfriend. And they had been living with each other too, so it wasn't just like a short thing. And her family thought that maybe she took her own life or ran off because of the heartache of it, like, of it all, because she had been dealing with depression and everything. But her friends, again, were like, you know, she was actually starting to go to therapy, like, she was in taking medication, she was really working on her mental health, so there's no reason she actually, and they also said that she seemed super happy during the Halloween party, like, the whole time they were out and everything, so that's another thing that they were like, yeah, that's not it. And but Cindy, and then, well then, like I said earlier too, they also said Cindy wasn't the kind of person to take off without letting someone know where she was, so it's not like she just was like, cool, I'm gonna go out now, and then she didn't, like, tell anyone. Like, that wasn't something that she did. So it already was all very suspicious that she would do that. And the only sighting of Cindy was actually a few days after she was reported missing, and it was over 200 miles away from Chinatown. A woman called in a tip that a woman matching Cindy's description was in a vehicle she was passing. The woman appeared to be crying and yelling for help. She said a man suddenly appeared and told her to get lost. So basically, you know, obviously super suspicious. The man was described as an Asian male with olive to light brown complexion and medium-length hair. Sadly, the sketch of the man seen with the woman crying for help in Chinatown is still wanted for questioning to this day. The police were skeptical, though, about the sighting since the witness ended up changing her story multiple times. Which, I mean, if you ask me, it could just be because maybe they questioned her so many times. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm questioned a lot of times, I start to kind of second guess, like, what I'm saying. Because I start to feel like, oh, you know, maybe I am missing something. Maybe I'm not thinking properly. Like, I feel like there could be a lot of reasons why the lady changed her story. I mean, maybe she was a part of it and honestly was just trying to help hide the facts of like what was happening. Who knows? No one knows. But that's just me being weird and coming up with weird ideas of like what happened. Anyway, so they finally got a lead in June 2003, so 2 years later after her disappearance. And it was actually a man named Paul Weekly. He was facing a felony already based off of a burglary charge, and decided to tell a shocking story to the police about, you know, what he thought was going on with Cindy and like where she was. So Paul was already known, like I said, as being a criminal. And so when he came in, like, hey, police, you know, I got a story for you. They're like, okay, like, cool, like, what is it? Maybe, you know, we got a tip here, finally some information. And he told the police that Hugo Hilinski and Michael Krabowski abducted a woman who they thought was a prostitute from the state college, which again, that's weird because she wasn't dressed like a prostitute, but I mean, I guess, you know, men are weird sometimes. And so they said that then they took her to Hugo's house in Hunlock Creek, and they kept her in a walk-in safe. Over the next few days, they assaulted the woman and had, in quote, their way with her, leaving her to die when they were finished. Yeah, what gentlemen. And so Hugo Hilinski, my bad, which is one of the people that was accused, he had actually already been a wanted fugitive since May 2002, after he was convicted of several felonies for running an illegal drug ring out of his pharmacy. He went missing with his girlfriend Tammy Fawcett while waiting for his sentence. But the thing is, he never showed up. But Paul, you know, Paul's the one that's saying, giving all this sweet information. Paul says Hugo actually killed Michael. Supposedly Michael kept Cindy's bunny ears as a trophy, but Hugo did not like that. So, in short, he's saying Hugo killed Michael because Michael had kept the bunny ears as a trophy, and Hugo, I'm assuming, didn't want to get caught, so he didn't like that, so he just killed him instead of, you know, talk about it or whatever. And he told the investigators that Hugo was actually responsible for the death of at least 16 people. Yes, 16 people. And then he led investigators to Hilinski's property, where they actually found 5 bodies that were located. And 2 of the bodies that were found buried on the property belonged to Michael and Tammy, which, remember, Michael's the one who supposedly kept the bunny ears. So he was killed and he was dead and he missed his trial. But they ended up finding bone fragments too that belonged to drug dealers Frank James and Idea Keeler were found in a burn pit along with a third person who was never identified. So that's kind of sad. I mean, who knows? It could be Cindy, but they say that it wasn't her. And then after digging around the property, a total of 12 bodies were actually found. None of the remains of Hugo's property matched Cindy, but that's probably because he had actually moved to the new property where all the bodies were found a few months before Cindy had actually gone missing. And but none of the remains match Cindy, like I said. But investigators have not been able to connect them to her disappearance, sadly. So maybe it was just a lie. We don't know. But he has not been ruled out as a suspect anyway, so he's still in the ringer for possibly being a part of it. And since Michael's dead, they were never able to confirm Paul's story as far as that goes. But I say it looks pretty suspicious that he's dead after the guy said that he didn't like the whole Lenny situation. A search of Paul's computer revealed that he had downloaded multiple articles about the Cindy disappearance. And so due to that, they were afraid that they didn't want to believe him because he may have been studying the details in order to provide false evidence to shorten his sentence in return, since he had already been in trouble with the law previously. Since he was already serving a life sentence and looking at the death penalty. Or maybe he was actually the killer and just framed Hugo. He already had a large amount of dead bodies on his hand as is, so it would make sense for him to frame Hugo for doing it instead. Paul and Hugo both are serving life sentences for unrelated murders. The sighting in Philadelphia is hard to prove, so no one really knows about, like I said, no one really knows if what that lady said was true or not, sadly. So, and no one's found the man either, so it's kind of, that's up in the air. And I'm sure he probably looks way different now, so I don't know if that would even help, sadly. Everyone that's close to her, so like her friends and her family that were there during her disappearance, are just like, friends with her during a part of her life during her disappearance, they've all been ruled out as being suspects as well. And none of her friends believe she could have taken her own life or that she ran away, so they don't believe that either one of those are possibilities for like why she's missing. And sadly, there is no body. They never found a body. And there's no physical evidence, there's no witnesses, there's nothing to really go off of, so they don't really have anyone or anything to kind of be like, okay, this is the answer to why or how things are, or like what possibly could have happened to her. So sadly, her family and her friends have never really gotten the closure that they deserve. And I probably won't ever really bring this up ever again, maybe just because this is my first video, but actually, when I was in high school, my brother was actually murdered, so I can't imagine being in a situation like that, of not knowing, or at least like having even like the slightest of clue what was going on. Like, that's gotta be honestly like the worst thing, to know that just no one knows like why she's missing or where she could have gone or anything. Like, the only real evidence that they really have is, what Paul told everyone. And it's like, can you really even believe Paul, since Paul is a criminal himself? Because it's like he could just be saying all of that for his own well-being or his own selfish reasons. Just, and so it's really still just out there and about as far as like whether he did it or not, or whether Hugo did it or not, I should say. I really hope that the family does find some or get something out of it, or at least hope that at the very least they're happy now, because, or at least like they've moved on from things and they have like a better life now, because I don't know, honestly, like I hope too that they're not offended by videos like this, because I mean, I feel like I wouldn't be offended if someone was making videos about my brother, for instance. I don't think it's a very interesting story, so that's also why I'm not gonna delve into it, but in this it's kind of an interesting story. I don't know, but my family life is just weird as is, honestly. But yeah, so I'd just like to know, like, if you guys have any ideas, like if you guys think anything, or if you guys actually even know more, you guys can comment below and say any more details that you guys might know, or just any ideas of what you think might have possibly happened to her, or like just any theories you might have or something. That would be cool to know, like to have. Okay, also, if anyone's watching this, if you guys could tell me any like ideas that you guys have for things that you would like to see here, that would be cool. My channel, I think, is mostly, at least in my head for right now, is what I'm thinking it's going to be. Is my original plan was I was just going to do a cooking channel. So like this, for instance, wouldn't have been a video. Or I figured I would do like cooking stuff and then sometimes do hair dyeing videos. But I couldn't quite figure out what I wanted to have for my very first video. Is that I'm going to do videos on me making like different recipes from like movies and TVs. So I was thinking my next video will probably be that. I'm not going to tell you what, because it has to be a surprise, because that's how surprises work, and they're fun. At least when it comes to videos, it's fun to me. But yeah, so I think what I'm going to do, since I'm almost done here, is I'm going to finish doing this. And then I'll be back to show you guys the results. To you, it'll probably only seem like a couple seconds, unless I totally suck and botch up the idea of what it's actually like to edit a video. Then maybe it'll still seem like it's been forever. It seems like it's been forever since you've been gone. That's what you guys will be singing to me. Like, where'd you go? I missed you so. You know, that song. That's what you guys will be like. I mean, I hope you guys know that song. If you don't know that song, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Bye! Here's the finished look. If I was going to do this again, I think I would definitely lighten the colors a bit. I think it's way too dark. Also, I feel like I should have made my sections a little smaller so that would have looked a little better. Other than that, I think it's okay.